have minutes from the prior board meeting on August 24th. Do we have a motion to adopt those minutes?
Motion?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor? Next, is there any correspondence? Okay, no correspondence, good. Any update from any member of the board committees?
Yes, Mr. Gernswald. Although the Board of Education Facilities Committee did not actually have a formal meeting, I would like to present the annual building walkthrough report.
Great.
On the 31st of August and September 1st, several members of the Board of Education, along with Mrs. Fallon, Ms. Marone Caliendo, and Mr. Feedy, toured each of our school buildings just prior to the opening of the first day of the 2015-2016 school year. The building administrators and custodial staff proudly unveiled freshly painted hallways, classrooms, and revitalized gym floors. Each building had its own list of unique projects, which were prioritized and completed, including items such as addressing drainage issues, repairing potholes in each of the parking lots, installing an entrance canopy in one of the buildings, sanding and restaining classroom doors, renovating and repurposing rooms and closets, which Dr. Woodbury also mentioned in the presentation here. Also, similar projects were in process at all of the buildings at the same time. And those projects included installing new wiring and upgrading antiquated phone systems, retrofitting water purification dispensing systems, receiving updated copy machines, and revitalizing computer labs. This list continues and each is different within the buildings, keeping in mind that the setup and breakdown of summer school added to the activity in some of the elementary schools. All of this was occurring also while secondary schools were preparing to unveil the bring your own device capabilities, again mentioned by Dr. Woodbury and his staff. Elementary schools received new computer carts and laptops so that there would be one cart shared by two classrooms instead of what was previously customary, which was one cart shared by a grade level. Although Ms. Marone Caliendo also gave a report in August about the facilities, there were two big summer projects which I would like to repeat and highlight, and they are the beautiful 8 new tennis courts, which are at High School West and which were completed in record time, as well as the new partition door system in the auditorium at High School West. The actual doors, however, have not yet arrived because they are custom, but all the prep work was done in anticipation of the actual installation. As always, the magnitude and scope that is successfully completed in preparation for each school year is astounding. Many thanks to Ms. Marone Caliendo and Mr. Feedy, the maintenance crew who keep the projects moving by utilizing in-house talent to complete some of the tasks, as well as the custodians in each building who successfully complete all of the ambitious projects which are put before them for the summer.
Thank you very much. Are there any other board chair people that would like to provide an update?
Sure. The Policy Committee had a meeting earlier this month, and we looked at 11 policies. New policies are updating them. We have 6 to present later today for our first reading. There were another 5 that we discussed and we're still working on. 3 of them are not finished because we believe the entire board needed to discuss them, which we will discuss at the upcoming vision meeting that we're having in October. And 2 of them, one about complaints about curriculum and another one about donations to the district or gifts to the district, still required additional information from administrators, so we'll be discussing them at our next meeting. And that's going to be October 16th at 8 a.m. At Fran Greenspan. So if anybody wants to join us, it's open to the public. And if anybody wants to submit any information on policy concerns, you can always let me know. That's it.
Any other board committees? Any other updates? Great. Any pending or unfinished business? Any comments from visitors? I'll turn the meeting over now to Mrs. Fennell.
Thank you. Dr. Harrigan?
Thank you, Mrs. Fallon. I have a number of resolutions. Two of them I'll read, one that's included on my action items, but I'll read the first two, if that's okay. Be it hereby resolved that the Board of Education of the Half Hollow Hills Central School District approves a stipulation of settlement dated September 1st, 2015, regarding the employee named in confidential attachment A. And be it further resolved that the superintendent be authorized to execute said stipulation of settlement on behalf of the board.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Thank you. Be it hereby resolved that the Board of Education of the Half Hollow Hills Central School District approves a stipulation of settlement dated September 1st, 2015, regarding the employee name in confidential attachment B, and be it further resolved that the superintendent be authorized to execute said stipulation of settlement on behalf of the board.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Okay, the remainder of our report, I have resolutions regarding the certification of lead evaluators, certificated and non-certificated report, as well as additional compensation and addendum.
Can I ask for a motion to take the report in its entirety?
Motion?
Second.
Any comments or questions?
I just had one comment about one individual being appointed, non-certificated personnel. A friend of mine, as I indicated when I got the report, I didn't know this person was applying. Not that I could have done anything one way or the other, but I did know. But before voting, I just wanted to disclose that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, so we have a motion on the table to accept the report in its entirety. All those in favor? And a motion to approve the report.
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Thank you, Dr. Harrigan.
Thank you, Mrs. Fallon. My first item is a budget transfer for the 2015-16 school year as detailed in Appendix A.
Motion?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Thank you. My next item is a request for a renewal of an arrangement we have with Seneca Consulting Group. That organization has been working very closely with my office and with Dr. Harrigan's office in order to ensure that we fully and appropriately implement all the implications and requirements of the Affordable Care Act. So the request is to allow us to continue that arrangement.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Thank you. My next item is a donation for the natatorium from Team Suffolk. I don't know if anyone from Team Suffolk is here.
They are.
Ah, awesome. So if we can just get a photo, that would be great. But first, the donation is for $13,000, which is on top of the $10,000 that was donated last year from Team Suffolk, and that is in an effort to assist us with some natatorium projects that are ongoing. So we are going to add the two donations together, and the goal is to be able to resurface the decking at the natatorium. We are still waiting for Board of Health approval, but this additional donation will give us another reason to reach out to them again to try and get their approval so we can continue on with that project.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? I'll just make a comment and say that I think that what you're doing for the district is outstanding. It's wonderful that you're helping to provide opportunities for kids. It's wonderful that you're taking an interest in the facility and trying to make sure that the facility is continually improved. So, I just have to say, as a person, not as a board member, just thank you as a community member. We really, really do appreciate what you're doing here. It's a very big step, so thank you.
You're welcome. See you later. We'll have to talk.
Thank you very much, thank you.
And that's all in my board report for this evening.
Mr. Farrell.
Thank you, Mrs. Fallon. This evening I have several items for the board's consideration. The first item is a list of recommendations made by the Committee for Special Education.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
The second item is the appointment of a new committee member to the Committee for Special Education.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Okay, the next item is the appointment of our general education teachers to the Committee for Special Education.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
The next item is the approval for our paraprofessionals to serve after school with the students that they serve.
Great. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
And we're seeking approval to offer flu shots to our nurses and health office paraprofessionals again.
Great. Do we have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Any comments or questions? I'll just make a comment in that, this is something that we do every year. And it's a very good thing that we're doing that every year to help maintain our health care workers' health. So, thank you.
And
All those in favor?
sorry. And the last item, I have a consultant contract with the Developmental Disabilities Institute.
Great. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor? Great.
Thank you, Mr. O'Farrell. And Mrs. Vitaleano.
Thank you, Mrs. Fallon. This evening I have the Committee on Preschool Special Education recommendations for board approval.
Do we have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Board of Education policy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were
As Mr. Conrad had mentioned earlier, the policy committee met and did a great deal of work back in last month, and we have 6 policies for first reading. The first policy is policy 0110 on sexual harassment. New York State School Board Association has reviewed and updated this policy to connect with the Dignity for All Students Act and certain actions that the United States Department of Justice has taken. The updated policy also has supporting regulations and exhibits that mirror our non-discrimination policy, so the exhibits and reporting mechanisms for staff are the same. And this policy will replace the board's existing policy 3145. Second policy is policy 0150, HIV and AIDS. Board of Education recognizes HIV as a public health concern and there are commissioner's regulations regarding the classroom instruction piece. This has been reviewed by Mr. Murphy, Director of Health and Physical Education. This policy will replace existing policy number 2223. The third policy is policy 0320, evaluation of the superintendent. This again is a recommendation from New York State School Board, has been reviewed and updated policy to clarify the requirements of commissioner's regulations. Includes a policy as well as an exhibit, and it will replace existing policy 1240. The fourth policy is policy 1130, media relations. This is a new policy for the district. It's not a required policy, but both School Boards Association and the committee felt it was an important one. The recommendation is that the board establish definite procedures for interacting with the media. The fifth policy is policy number 1230, public participation at board meetings. This is recommended from the Board of Education, from School Boards Association to encourage public participation on school-related matters. This policy will replace existing bylaw 0167.4. And finally, policy 1400 is on public complaints, recognizing the right of community members to register individual or group concerns regarding district matters, and the policy outlines the procedures to be followed when a complaint is received by a member of the Board of Education. If we could take a motion to waive the literal reading, these are motion 6 policies.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor of waiving the little reading? Great.
And second readings of these 6 policies will take place on October 26th.
Great. Are there any requests from the Board of Education?
I have a request. I didn't know if it falls under this or new business. So if I'm out of turn, let me know. Just following up on an email I sent to the board on September 10th about a letter that I had seen the HHH School District Board of Education send out to their staff members, not from administrators, from the board itself, and talking about its stance on where it is in certain educational issues. Some of the things in the letter talked about passing a detailed resolution opposing high-stakes testing and APPR regulations, indicating to the state it would not do field testing in the middle and elementary schools. I passed that along to our board for consideration. I believe that I would like to see our board do a similar letter on issues that we feel strongly about. So I just raised that not only in an email, but now in a public session, and hopefully we can discuss that at our vision meeting.
We can discuss that at our vision meeting. What I would say, though, is that it really has been practice in the district for the Board of Education president to address the staff at Superintendent's Conference Day. In the HHH School District, that does not take place or has not taken place. So that was a correspondence that was solely from the Board of Education. The administration was not part of that. I will say that the district had a great superintendent's conference day, really throughout all of the buildings in the district. There's an extremely positive tone, and really everyone is looking forward to really get busy with the work at hand, that being the education of our children. There was outstanding curriculum projects that took place over the summer that are now being implemented. So I believe that our staff is in a place of feeling appreciated and recognized. So that part of the
And then I'd like to send that message to our parents. If our staff's taken care of, well, I'd still like to see it in writing, but I'd like to send that message to our parents, because I think some of those issues were not clear. As someone who was sitting in the audience as a parent last year, it wasn't clear to me, and I think there's a lot of people out there that would like to know the direction. And I'm not saying this is a criticism, and I'm not even directing it solely at the board president. I'm saying it just in general, and hoping it's something we can address.
Okay. That's a fair request. Good. Board counsel?
on this or in general? No, I have nothing, and as I tell you every month, if I have nothing, you're ahead of the game.
New business. There's one item that I think we should just discuss briefly. I'd like to ask for a motion to support the New York State School Board Association recommendations, just so that we can provide guidance to our voting delegates at the conference. So, do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Just had a few questions. I think it's a similar issue to what I just addressed. And I have not been through this experience before, so if I'm incorrect on something, please let me know. But in going through the voting delegate guide, specifically proposed resolutions 24 through 30, it appears to me that those were just resolutions submitted by individual school districts, or school boards, excuse me, for consideration, and they were not endorsed by the New York State School Boards Association. But I believe that each one of those, 24 through 40, is a good resolution, and one that if I was the delegate, I would hope that I could have the support of our board to vote for. So I would like to consider 24 through 30. For example, 25, submitted by the Newark Valley School Board, says resolved that as of October 2015, NISBA and its member boards express, quote, no confidence, end quote, in the New York State testing system. That's one. There's one about Resolution 26, no confidence in the state APPR system. Some of them are less controversial, I guess, but one talking about field testing. So again, these similar issues, I would urge our board to consider voting in favor of resolutions 24 and 30.
Any other comments? So can we have a vote on giving direction? So all those in favor?
I'm sorry, in favor of,
In favor of
I'm not quite sure.
providing you the direction that you need for, do we need a vote on that?
What you need to do is you need to give your voting delegate the consensus of the board. I'm not sure I know what the motion is, so it's hard for me to comment about whether, if the motion is what is being
Motion is to
suggested,
follow his
which is to approve
recommendation.
24 through 30, then that's how it should be stated, that the board votes to approve resolutions 24 through 30, and they take a vote, get a second, and vote for it. Unless I misunderstood.
I think you were trying to say follow what NISBA's recommending, and I'm saying, well, besides what I'm fine with what NISBA's recommending, except for 24 through 30, I think we should vote in favor of it. So I apologize if it's confusing.
Oh, okay, I was only focusing on 24
Yeah.
through 30, which are the ones I
Sure.
asked of you. Maybe you should vote on 1 through 23 first,
Okay.
which I haven't seen them, so I'm a little in the dark, but I'm assuming that those are the ones that NISBA has supported.
What Eric is, the motion is to accept NISBA's recommendations in their entirety.
Like 1
That
through
was the
30.
motion that Eric started.
So that's 1 through all 30?
Yes.
Okay, then that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So that's the motion on the table, I believe. Okay. So those in favor of accepting NISBA's recommendations for 1 through 30? Those against?
Just for the reasons I've stated.
Understood, understood. And the reality is there will be an additional discussion with the Nassau and Suffolk School Board Association. And, you know, at that point in time, they'll promulgate what their position is, and that'll be a very good opportunity for us to also go back and review before the conference, if we would like to consider any other actions.
Thank you.
Great. Any other comments from visitors? Jill Kaufman.
Before I ask what I wanted to say, that I signed up for, can I just clarify something that just happened in the vote? Was NISMA's recommendation to vote yes for 1 through 23 and vote no for 24 to 30?
I'm not sure if that's exactly what it was.
I don't believe it was. If I may interject, I don't believe it was. I think on each one of the first 23, there were certain ones they said yes or no.
But what was their recommendation for 24 to 30?
No.
Yeah, I'm not sure what each of them were.
They did not support 20.
They did not support.
They did not.
Okay, and the board
They are
voted,
posted on our
and
website.
the board voted 6-1 to accept what New York State School Board recommended and vote no for 24 through 30, is that correct?
As written, yes.
Okay. The reason that I signed up to speak was because I sent an email to the district clerk today, to Roseanne Marini, and I got an automated message email back saying that she would be out from September 8th and would not return until the 22nd. No other information was provided. Does the board think that it would be a good idea to have in this automated email the contact information for the assistant district clerk so that when a community resident has an issue they need to speak to the clerk about, they would actually know who to contact? Because not everyone knows that we have an assistant clerk. I do happen to know, so I forwarded my email to Kathy Notaro. But I don't think most of the community knows this. So I don't think it's really fair to the taxpayers that they won't have their issue resolved or their questions answered for almost a month.
That's the point very well taken. Until we will, if Ms. Marini is going to be out in the future, we'll make sure that we forward it to the superintendent's office, to the assistant district clerk.
And could that be done now because she's out now?
It is, she'll be back tomorrow.
She's back tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you.
Alan,
That's good enough. Hi, good evening. I just have some questions on the budget. As you know, I teach a municipal finance class, and I always use your district as the beacon of hope for everybody because of your clarity and the information you provide. And as my semester is just starting, I figured I'd ask some questions so I can educate myself and my students as well. Could I get the number of the unrestricted reserve and balance that the school district has going into 2015-16? How much money is the unrestricted reserve?
Mr. Garen's, Mrs. Fallon, is it possible, I've met with Alan in the past, is it possible I can just meet with him and give him his information for his class versus, it'll take me some minutes just to get the information on my laptop. Is that okay?
Well, I'll just give you all my questions and then you tell me, Tom, and I'll come and I'll walk over.
Sure, go right ahead.
So I'd like the unrestricted reserve that we could use in future years. Second question is I'd like the surplus for the school year 2012-13, the surplus for the years 2013-14. If you have a I know the school year just ended a few months ago. If you have a projected surplus for the year 2014 and 2015. And then my question, which is really, that's specific to you, thank you, to the board is, my understanding is that the state cap is 0.73% going next year. And I'd like to know, and ask you in advance, because that's less than 1%, and salaries go up 3% based on steps and wages and the cost of living and everything else. What plans that you have or are you forming now to deal with the fact that you have a cap, which is basically a no increase cap for next year? So I was wondering if I could get some idea on how the school district will be approaching. This is the first time that the cap has ever been so low. In the past, it's been 2.5%, 3.5%. Now it's basically zero, the cap. So I'd like to know how you're going to deal with that with costs going up. I'd like to commend everybody because you read in the paper about Pomac and Sachem had $118 million surplus. Now they have $16,000. You guys done a very good job, but I do have some concerns. The fact that costs are going up, the cap is very, very low, and how you're going to approach it. And one other question, and this is probably my fault, could someone just explain on the 2 schools that closed, did you sell one school or lease it out? And is that money in the budget for this year? What's happening with the revenue from those 2 schools? Are we getting any revenue in, and did you budget for those?
I have that without having to look it up. The 2 schools that we closed, Forest Park and Chestnut Hill, we did not sell either building. That was never part of the conversation. We have 1 building partially leased to Alternatives for Children. We generate about $150,000 a year for that. That is embedded in the budget on the revenue side. And then we are in active conversations with other organizations about leasing out portions of the other of that building as well as the other building.
Okay, thank you. So if the board, if you don't have an answer today, I'll come back another meeting, but I would like to get some idea early on how you're going to approach a very difficult school year where the state has imposed basically a no increase. Thank you.
Amy Stone.
I just have a question. Why are we allowing varsity teams to practice on the most important holiday in the Jewish religion on Wednesday? Where kids that observe it can't eat or drink, and I heard the line, they're not going to get penalized, but they're getting put under the pressure that they will get penalized when there's only a couple of them on the team that are not going to practice because everyone else is going on Wednesday.
We really worked through the practice scenario with all varsity sports, I guess it was 3 years ago, in terms of our teams practicing what was practiced in other school districts in terms of practicing and preparing for competitions. We did meet with many of the local rabbis, and we had meetings at the temples really to discuss what was the best way for the school district to manage really the practices. And really, we have for the last 3 years, Mr. O'Farrell?
We've never practiced on Yom Kippur in all the years. That's one holiday we've never practiced on. When we've had school, that's one holiday that has never been practiced on. The kids have to fit. They can't eat, they can't drink. Those that observe the holiday. So there's no absolute way for these kids to practice unless, because they'll end up in a hospital from not eating or drinking on that holiday. Every holiday aside, this is the most important holiday. That's just like if you were to have practice on Christmas Day, which you guys don't do. This is our most important holiday. It's very wrong to have a practice, whether you say penalized or not penalized, it's very wrong to have a practice on this holiday.
When we did our research, one of the things that we did find is that every high school in Suffolk County does have practice on the same day. And I understand where your point, I really do. But in order to make sure that all of our kids have the same opportunity as every other kid in Suffolk County, we do have that practice. There is not anything that is held against a child for observing their religion, and there shouldn't be, and there won't be, because we've been very clear about that. So really, that's unfortunately the realities of the situation. And that's the last comment from visitors, so I'd like to
Can I ask a question on that last comment?
Sure.
So school's closed that day,
Yeah, there's no
Yes.
school.
but we're having practice after school, even though there's no school?
No, they have it in the morning when the kids should be at temple. They're at practice. So it's not even like in the afternoon where the kids could do both. It's during the same hours that they would be in temple is when the practice is happening. So the few kids have to choose between, do I want to be on it, and as much as you say don't get penalized, we could agree to disagree on that, or go to practice. So it puts families in a hard spot because kids feel that pressure that they need to be there.
May I ask a question?
The reality is there is no penalty associated with that for the
As I said, we'll agree to disagree on that one.
Understood. So at this point in time, I'd like to ask for a motion. to
Excuse
adjourn.
me, may I ask a question?
I guess you could chalk it up to being a newbie, but on the vote for NISBA's recommendation, I had some questions about policy, resolutions 24 to 30, so with good conscience, I can't agree to vote for NISBA's recommendation for 1 to 30. So I'd like to change my vote. So if I'd like to discuss it, I guess when we're together, voting 24 to 30, so if we're going to vote its entirety, then I'm going to vote no.
It's unusual, but she votes and she votes for it. We haven't adjourned the meeting, it's still session election.
So then I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Do we have a second?
May I ask a question before you adjourn? May I ask a question?
Sure, we're here.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry that I walked out of the room, so I might have missed part of the conversation. But I walked in on the middle of it, and there was a question about practice being on Yom Kippur for one of our school teams. Is that correct?
All varsity teams.
I'm just curious, is there ever a practice on Easter Sunday? I'm just curious, because I don't recall there ever being a practice on Easter Sunday. And in the Jewish religion, maybe many of you aren't Jewish, that is the holiest day of the year. And why is it that you're scheduling a practice on that day? I mean, if you're not having practice on Easter Sunday, why would you have it on the holiest day in the Jewish religion? Whether kids are penalized or not.
As I mentioned earlier, every school district in Suffolk County practices on that day. And in order to be fair to all of the athletes, practice will be held on that day. The reality is there are no negative ramifications for a child observing their religious holiday, and there shouldn't be.
All school districts may not have a Jewish population the size of Half Hollow Hills. So I don't know that you could necessarily compare our district to many other districts. I'm just concerned with what Half Hollow Hills does. That's all.
Do we hold practices on other religious holidays? I don't know, I'm asking, understand.
Wrestling sometimes during that December, right?
We don't,
They don't, excuse me, they don't do anything on Christmas Day, the wrestling. Christmas Day, New Year's Day, which isn't even a holiday, they do not compete on Christmas Day. It might be over the weekend or during the break, but nothing happens on Christmas Day for wrestling. That is a family day.
If I could just add, so I can't speak to what has happened in the past, previous 5 or 6 years, but for the last 4 or 5 years, we haven't had any conversations restricting practice on any of those days. So really the decision to have practice was a decision to not limit practice on that particular day. So I don't know the answer if we practiced on Easter or Christmas. I don't believe that we have.
I don't believe we have either.
Had conversations saying that they couldn't.
Okay, so I think we have a motion on the table.
I would think that if, to show respect for the holiest of days of any religion, I wasn't a jock, I was part of the school radio station, so maybe I don't get it, but I don't see why it's so important to practice on the holiest day in the Jewish religion. It's no vote, so I share your concern. I don't know what we do.
Can we have a vote?
I know in the past, this issue has been raised, the biggest issue is we need a certain number of days to practice in order to play. And because of some of the holidays, we didn't have enough days to do that. I don't know where we sit this year with that. I know that when we had this conversation 3 years ago with the rabbis and the leaders of the communities, we expressed the same.
I'm sure the
Maybe
rabbis
it's
will be
something
very
the
happy
policy
to know.
committee can look at, because I don't think we're prepared to address it. Right, I mean, it's not something that's before, and the board wouldn't mind, as a policy committee chair, I'm happy to take a look at it. I know it doesn't help you for Tuesday or Wednesday, but.
I think it's something we need to look at. Obviously, it's not gonna happen this year. Something
You
we
could
need to look
cancel
at for the
practice.
future. We don't do it on these
Cancel
other
practice.
holidays. Days, whatever days it is, Yom Kippur is the most important holiday in our religion. There should not be any practice. End of story. We have a huge Jewish population in this
It's very
district,
disrespectful.
and we need to be respectful to us. And it's just not right. It's not right to our children at all, that they have to make this decision to follow their religion or follow their sport. There should be no practice. It shouldn't be a question. I think it's something that you guys need to look into and move forward with that.
Cancel practice. Cancel the practice. That's what they should do.
So,
Our-
motion is on the table, I believe, to adjourn.
Nobody's going to vote on that, huh?
We have
There's
a
no
motion.
vote?
We have seconded, yes?
Second.
Any comments or questions?
No vote.
Okay, all those in favor?